so much, Ed. And I don't want to make this a bouquet tossing contest, but suffice it to say that those who followed tech policy in the city of Washington over the last few years, it's complicated. There are a lot of political brawls that break out. But our own Ed is one of those voices for sanity and justice. And how about a good CCIA shout out for Ed? I think it's only right with this terrific organization to start about the obvious, and that is that the net, in just a couple of short decades, has revolutionized the way we work, the way we communicate, and the way we live in just about every respect. And entrepreneurs have clearly led that revolution. They're the folks who pioneered the innovations that make the net what it is. They work because they were able to flourish because folks could follow their dreams in an environment that promoted invention, and there were very few barriers to entry. And I think it's fair to say that folks relied on just a few simple ideas. And let me just kind of pick them off. First, their invention had to have appeal to the public. Second, it had to provide something useful. Maybe educational, maybe entertaining, had to provide something useful. Couldn't damage the protocols and the infrastructure that hosted the net. And if you played by those 3 or 4 rules, the marketplace was then open to you. And I wanted to begin today by saying I think there are storm clouds ahead that could close the doors of that marketplace to future innovation. And my view is that the continued growth of the net right now is being hampered by the lack of clear, enforceable standards on net neutrality. And I don't think the country can afford that in these kinds of difficult times. And I come to this kind of position as a reflection of some of the battles that we have been in together in the past. For example, we blocked what would have been a tidal wave of lawsuits and certainly legal attacks from swamping the net. We did that by creating a bright line of protection from liability for service. We kept the grasping hands of local and state tax collectors away from strangling the net with multiple and discriminatory taxes on internet commerce. Now, we've got to make sure that the net is protected from the ever-present impulse of companies that would like to take advantage of their position as a middleman to erect tolls and barriers for their own benefit. And I'm very hopeful that all in this room will join in that particular cause, because I think it is critical to create jobs and benefits for everybody in every nook and cranny of this country, and not just for the fortunate few. So let's just say you're a young kid fresh out of college, you've got a groundbreaking idea, and you want to have your business have access to the net. Or you're in healthcare tech. You found some way to streamline electronic medical records, save patients money, improve patients' health. And those are folks who don't have a boatload of dollars, but what they lack in funding, they make up for with the uniqueness of their idea and certainly their energy and enthusiasm. And I think we know, given the history of the net, those are ideas that can spark new jobs and what I call new tributaries of industries that can feed off the one that's been designed by that entrepreneur who was trying to make ends meet. They go to the bank, they go to the venture community, but now the funders want evidence that their idea can't be locked out of the marketplace by an ISP who's got a competing product, or somebody who sells preferential access to a bigger player who can bump that entrepreneur in, say, the application process to a slower lane. Without those kinds of protections, that entrepreneur, that person who's getting started, is going to leave that meeting with the venture folks or a bank empty-handed. So without clear and enforceable standards of neutrality, the net, in my view, is no longer an open marketplace. Those innovative new ideas that we've all battled for die before they can get off the ground. That's a recipe for stagnation, economic stagnation, when those are the very people who can help give our economy a jump start. Even businesses that are large, and we have some of them in this room, obviously, need the kind of certainty and predictability that I come before you and advocate today. If you're a big business, when you decide on investments for the future, one of the most important factors is knowing what the rules are going to be over the lifetime of that investment. And laying down the rules that I think are important create a clear view forward for everybody, all the people who look to the net in terms of jobs, and that means companies big and small. The single greatest threat to the health and welfare of the net and the economic growth it has fostered is this cloudy horizon that faces entrepreneurs and larger businesses alike. What's needed? Clear, unequivocal, and enforceable standards set by the government that protects the open and unfiltered access to the net. So I was disappointed that the Federal Communications Commission, in its recent notice of inquiry about the country's broadband future, did not once mention the concept of net neutrality. You see the words universal service, open networks, competition, affordability, but there's kind of an elaborate dance around the central and necessary concept of neutrality. The economic recovery bill that Congress passed at least mentioned the basic FCC standard of net neutrality, but those, in my judgment, are so inexact that they have fostered more legal wrangling than they have innovation and investment. Now, I'm aware that certainly some of the big service providers have made net neutrality a concept that certainly can be controversial to some. But I say made it controversial because there is not a single uncoached consumer in this country who would dispute that they should be able to access any site and any service anytime they want with the bandwidth that they pay for. Equally, no fair-minded American is going to agree to a monopoly in one area, like broadband access, to use that position to create monopolies in other areas, such as video or voice services. The only reason that there is a debate on this is that some fairly narrow interests have been able to deploy vast sums of money to try to generate controversy surrounding this concept that I would say no uncoached consumer would see differently than the worldview I've offered today. So let me close by saying that I think it is time to challenge the Federal Communications Commission to step up and create clear rules that ensure that, say, an independent filmmaker or a television show producer has the same access to viewers as the largest Hollywood studio or cable network. I think it is time to step up and challenge the Federal Communications Commission to guarantee that the newest web application that runs from a garage or dorm room has the same access to internet users as Microsoft or Google. I think it is time to challenge the Federal Communications Commission to create black and white rules ensuring that internet service providers are gateways to the whole net and not gatekeepers who are in effect running some kind of industrial policy where they get to pick the winners and losers.